going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to share something regarding mentality and how to get better and how to be more resilient, and who better than to break down the mind or the conversation with Gordan Ramsey. And he talks about how he became successful and some of the challenges that he had. He brings up some really good points that I want to share with you. I think sometimes we think the successful people are, wired differently. And maybe they have some advantages that most don't. But one thing I noticed, especially with this conversation, is the mentality that he needed in order to get to where he has arrived. And I wanted to share that with you because I think sometimes hearing it from those who have done it the best is inspirational. It is to me, and I want to share this with you. So let's get started with this video.
But you already, though, had something, because you don't end up in a Marco Pierre White kitchen unless you're already grafting, chasing perfection, thinking that you actually deserve to be there. Like, even further back, I know you played football as a young guy.
Yeah.
Like, was this mindset that Gordan was destined for something there when you were 12, 13, 14, 15?
Ooh, it's a tough one. I was hungry. I was in pursuit of something to better myself. It's interesting when you grow up with a disadvantaged childhood. At the time, you don't know it's that bad. But there is embarrassing moments at school where you're called out to do the photographs, and you got to go with the family, because I had my brother and my sister at the same school, because you weren't allowed to do it individually because your parents would never pay for that. And then there was the embarrassment every day when you went into the refectory for lunch. We had luncheon vouchers and there was a separate queue. And so it was like council house kids on the left-hand side and posh kids on the right-hand side. And that gave you a complex. That gave you a sort of a stern warning to get your shit together. So I think that's what helped shape me for that level of hunger to get focused, because I wasn't embarrassed about what my mum put on the table. I was embarrassed about the way it was segregated, in the way that you were made to feel separate from the classroom because your mum and dad couldn't afford to give you any money for school lunch.
And something that Gordan failed to mention here is that he was a aspiring professional football player, and he really was on his way, but he got injured. And Gordan had a choice, just like we do when we go through a lot of difficulty. He could have just, marinated in feeling sorry for himself, and it's like, my dream's over. But here's what I'm talking about. It's like, Gordan isn't this, he made a choice. He decided, you know what, I need to get my stuff together and I need to find something new. And that was cooking. But if you really pay attention, this already happened in his childhood when he was younger. When he noticed that he wasn't a rich kid, there's a different line, as for food and the vouchers. He had a choice then, to feel sorry for himself, or I got to do something about it. And that's where we have power. That's where we have energy. That's where we have a choice to allow our minds to go one way or allow it to go another. And I think that happens with all of us, and even the most successful people. We have choices of what paths we're going to allow our minds to take.
You've spoken so much about him over the years.
Yeah.
I've heard numerous times you said, "Oh, Marco, I just had, it was incredible. What a guy."
Yeah.
What was it?
I think we had similar backgrounds.
Right.
He lost his mum at a young age, and his father, he didn't have a good relationship. So I think you attach yourself to similar circumstances. And then there was an air of confidence that he knew he was better than the field. He'd worked for Nico, Albert, Pierre, Raymond Blanc, and all of a sudden, he was the new kid on the block. I knew after spending a couple of years with Marco that I had to come back to the fold with something different. So that's what got me into the Gavroche under the Roux brothers, because it was an area of sort of fine dining that I'd never been exposed to. 3-star Michelin. Marco was 2. And Le Gavroche was 3. But even before I went to Le Gavroche, I knew I had to go to France, because I had to come back to the fold and outsmart Marco. He'd never gone to France. He got stopped in his tracks and he got too big too soon, so he couldn't disappear to France. So I knew in my engine room I had that little advantage that I'm going to fuck off to France, become French, absorb myself in one of the most amazing countries in the world, and just gather more intel and come back and outsmart everybody in London.
Did you love the idea of arriving green behind the gills, inexperienced in Marco's kitchen, and then having in your head that one day I'm going to be a better chef than you?
Yeah, because he wanted you to. He pushed you to the extreme.
How did he do that?
Because, he drummed it in, if you're going to do it to your best.
And then going back to what I had referenced, Marco Pierre had this idea of he wanted everything perfect, right? And he wanted it right. But obviously, perfection is never achieved, but to pull all the potential out of you. And those environments are tough. Anytime you're trying to do something difficult, you're working in an environment that's very demanding, you do have a choice to either break down or ride the wave and see what you're made of. And sometimes we fail, sometimes we fall down. It's like, dang, I'm not good enough. But then again, you hear these stories from some of the most amazing athletes out there. Everybody knows the Michael Jordan story. Everybody knows inventors who failed 100 times and then finally they invented, the light bulb. But this is the process. It's the ebb and flows of growth. And it's really awesome to hear Gordan's process. And let's continue hearing what else he has to share with us.
If you don't want to do it to your best, get the fuck out of here. Don't waste my time and certainly don't waste yours. And I think it's a lot of life lessons early on because you're getting structured. You're getting hungry, you're getting knowledge, and all of a sudden you're becoming a beast because of the monster he created and the monster you're working for. And so I see those environments all the time. And I say to the individuals, stay in that environment, get what you need and get out. And when the shit hits the fan, learn to dance in the storm. It's a great place to be in because somewhere down the line, there's going to be a shitstorm on your radar and you're going to stand tall in that storm and you're going to get through it.
And when the storm would come to you in the kitchen, what was the best way to get out of that storm?
Solution.
I really love this piece, and it's my favorite part of the interview, being able to dance in the storm. Whenever we don't have experience or we don't have tough skin or we haven't been exposed to tough situations, we tend to be very brittle in those moments. And what happens psychologically is that if we're exposed to those stormy conditions, those tragedies, those, unseen accidents that we didn't plan or stuff happens that makes our life complicated, we're going to panic. Our fight, flight, or freeze mechanism is going to turn on. And at that point, we're about survival. We're not about solutions. And what Gordan is saying here is that when you get through those difficult times, all those times he worked under those amazing chefs that kicked his butt, he was able to have a higher threshold of stress and really use his mind to solve problems. And so I'm going to cut it here, but I just wanted to share this with you. If you're going through difficult times and you're struggling in life, continue walking through the fire, continue walking through the storm. If you make it out on the other end, you're going to be stronger. You're going to be proud. You're going to be able to handle more. And I think that's why this video really, really was nice to me. And as far as it felt good to see it because I feel like there's some parts of it that I can relate. And I hope that you can too. But if you can't, get yourself to a position where you walk through the fire, walk through the storm, so where you can dance in those tough times and not panic. All right, guys, that's all I got for today. If you enjoyed the content, click like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the channel grow. And remember, people don't have ideas. Ideas have ideas.